Yeah, the famous word of phrase of COVID. I think you
It
made the news.
happens, it happens. No worries. So
Yeah,
thank you so much for joining us. As you see, we're discussing mergers and acquisitions. I thought it was a great idea to have you join us. We saw the announcement recently. Congratulations. I wanted to just get a little bit as to how this transaction came about, and then we'll get into some specific questions.
great. Thank you for having me. And great question. It's always good to start with the why. And the why of this transaction is, we're members of the Young Presidents Organization, the YPO. There's a chapter here in Jamaica. It's a global organization that's around, I think, 50, 60 years old. And it's all about learning and business networking. And through that organization, someone reached out to my brother Daniel because they heard in the last 2-3 years we have been in acquisition mode. We want to grow, and Jamaica is great and we love it. And it's our core market, it's our bread and butter, and we're never giving it up. However, we want to be a larger company, like Grace Kennedy, massive. You think of many companies that are outside Jamaica. So that then stemmed the Dominican Republic acquisition, 51% acquisition of Kaya Energy Group, and it also brought on not only just exposure to the Dominican Republic market, which is like 6 times the size of Jamaica, but it brought with it some incredible talent with their management team, and super educated team, and experience of over 12 years in the solar energy space, which is really uh, we see as a big area, and all the solar is adding batteries and storage to their offerings, and that's where our energy storage, our core business, comes in. So through that network, we reached out that this company was for sale in the U.S. And it was a private equity. I mean, it was a 60-year-old company. So again, Tropical Battery, 75 years old, 60-year-old company. It just fit all of our matrix. The one thing, it was a large transaction because it's a larger company than us. Obviously the U.S. is the largest global economy in the world, and so it's lots of room, we feel, for growth, and just very excited about it. And it came. I hope I answered your question. That it came through the Young Presidents Organization, on how we found out about this company that was for sale, and then we went through the process, spoke to them, and 4 or 5 companies bid on it, and we were the chosen company with the right fit to take this company and grow it.
All right, great. Thank you for that context. It's amazing how they say, opportunities can come through your network, and that's literally what happened in your case. So, good to hear that. In terms of what this acquisition means for you, because you mentioned plans to get the company to the size of, some of the larger brands that we're used to seeing. What does this mean for you from a strategic perspective?
So it means a couple things. But we can what do call harmonize the 3 companies. So we're gonna slow down a little bit on acquisition mode, uh, because we have Kaya in Dominican Republic, we have Rose in California, and Tropical Battery, and putting these 3 companies together, uh, we feel we don't overlap a lot. So there's not much synergies when we overlap across the same thing. It's just back office synergies. But actually, we don't overlap a lot, especially in terms of products as well, because they're more a specialty battery manufacturer. So you think of a Dell server or something like that, and maybe batteries that go inside that Dell server that are high quality batteries that need to be accessed over long periods of time under harsh heat conditions. This is Rose, the type of company that does batteries for that industry. They do it for robotics, airplanes, a bunch of different spaces. So it's about using the fact that we don't overlap a lot in terms of products, and figuring out ways how we can then get synergies, that using our products into their market, which is massive, and they're shipping and using products into our market here in Jamaica and also Dominican Republic. So that to me is how it fits in our strategy. Because we're not overlapping on the product line that much, but of course, all in a very similar space: energy storage, batteries, stuff we understand. Yeah.
Okay. So can you give us a little bit more details as to the company's first thing? Are you able to share the company's name? Because I don't remember seeing the name in the announcement. And
Yes.
Jerome here is asking, is the company more profitable than Tropical Battery currently?
Yeah, great question. As of today, we did notify the JSE of the company's name. There were some contracts and stuff we were trying to make sure and figure out, uh, uh, you know, transferred smoothly after the acquisition, which took place on midnight, January 30th, 2024. And those are now, smoothly done. So now we can share the name, which I had mentioned earlier, I think twice. Rose Batteries is the name of the company. And that, yes, the company is larger than us. The second part of the question was about profitability. I can't predict the future, but what I can tell you is the past. And the past was in 2023, they had larger revenues than us, and they also had a significantly larger net income or profit than we did.
I like the phrasing there, significantly larger, meaning you're not quite going to tell us yet. I guess we'll see it in a couple of quarters.
Yeah.
So what made this company appealing specifically for you, right? Because I imagine that you might have been looking at multiple options. And so what would have made you settle on this particular company? And I guess maybe that one thing you are looking for.
Yeah, several things. As I said, it fits our criteria for acquisition. We wanted a well-known brand. We wanted something that was profitable. We wanted something that, again, 60-year-old brand, profitable. These things are all of our criteria. And it checked those boxes. It also checked that it was in a larger market, because we are looking for larger targets. We see Tropical Battery in 3 to 5 years down the road as, that Jamaica would be our smallest market. And actually, with this transaction now, we will be, doing more in US dollars in revenue and profit, outside. So it'll almost be like our sister company, Choco, that earns more in US dollars than they do in Jamaican dollars. So with Dominican Republic and Rose, more than 50% of our revenue comes in US dollars. So that, I think, is very attractive. And I guess that's why it was one of the key reasons why it fit our target structure. The second reason, and actually I would mention, which I've kind of slipped me for a while, but the talent and management team and the cycle that the business was in. So it was in a family business for like 55 years or 53 years, family business. So it's only ever been sold once before. And about 7 years ago, a private equity team came in and bought the company, and then kind of shifted from this family business mode into professionalized mode, which is something we had gone through that cycle and realized that when you buy a mom and pop family business, it's really the accounting is not there. There's a lot of catching up and work you have to do, and heavy lifting to get the business ready to be on the publicly traded or on that market. And I'm sure anybody who's gone through the IPO process knows this. And so the business was already professionalized, which is huge benefit for us. And one of the key reasons also why we bought the company, they put in professional management, and they bought it to sell it. They bought it to build it up, grow it, put in professional management team, and sell it. And I think we just came in at the right time. We think we got to get at a great low multiple relative to really what we trade at by a lot. But so we think it's accretive, secondly or thirdly, to shareholder value, because when you buy at a much lower multiple than what you trade at, those earnings, when they're consolidated in, should have a pretty positive impact for existing shareholders.
All right. I like the sound of that. So in terms of funding the acquisition, right? How did you go about that? How is that? Well, it's more or less completed now, I'd say. So I think you have a pretty clear idea as to what that is. So tell us about how you went ahead to fund the transaction?
Yeah, great question. As you mentioned, it's a hybrid model where we did some kind of like preferred equity shares and some bridgestone kind mezzanine type debt to acquire the company. But our ultimate goal is to do an APO or list some of it, because obviously we took on some debt to do the transaction because we had to close within a specific time frame, and we weren't able to do a rights issue or an APO or anything like that. So we just had to get strictly, some funding from us, some equity from us, from the company, and then mainly bank financing through preference shares or preferred equity, and also a bridge loan. I mean, we had some really great help from our financing partners, as mentioned, Cygnus Capital, who really came through and underwrote the facility for us, allowing us to buy this great asset. It's just a incredible asset that doesn't come up for sale too often. It's, as I said, only been sold now twice in 60 years. And we didn't go. It's just a brilliant asset. It produces right away, free cash flow, significant earnings, US dollars. It's a great asset. And now we're going to delever the transaction by doing an APO, probably in maybe April or May, sometime in the latter part of this year.
Okay, all right, interesting. So it sounds like you pretty much did what you had to do to close that transaction, and then the plan was always to raise additional funds from the market at that point, where you could now reduce that debt that you had taken on to close out the transaction. All right. So how does this improve your competitive advantage, right? And this is speaking specifically to what shareholders may be interested in. Where does this put you in terms of the landscape?
On several fronts. So, the team that is in California is at a high level. It's based in Silicon Valley, so you can only imagine the quality of talent coming out of Stanford University, which is like 20-30 minutes away from the office, and so there's great talent. So that's one way it helps us. The second is, of course, we're now entering, not just Amazon, America. We're entering a physical location, manufacturing assembly plant in California and Mexico, as part of the acquisition. Also we, have huge synergies where we think we can leverage the Jamaican products into the US, now having a physical place to distribute from. And thirdly, of course, vice versa. So when we look at Dominican Republic, we look at Jamaica, and we look at the US, they're huge. Collectively, it's one really big market. And so if we get our product mix correct, and are able to not only just do specialty batteries, but maybe distribution of some batteries, and then maybe even installations of solar, which we're doing now in Jamaica and Dominican Republic. So yeah, that's how we think we're going to add a ton of value by leveraging the three markets that we now operate in, which are three significant markets. The state of California's GDP is $3.3 trillion US dollars, just the state of California's GDP. So I think there's plenty of room for us to grow here now.
Definitely sounds exciting, I'll say, and I can't wait to see that, or to learn more, I guess, how things come together. What are some of the things, since we're on the topic of mergers and acquisitions for this episode, what are some of the lessons that you learned from this transaction that maybe you never experienced in other transactions?
Yeah, great question. We've probably done about 10 or 12 transactions, some mostly on the buy side, some on the sell side. That we sold one of our gaming businesses to Supreme Ventures, Prime Sports. We bought different companies within the Chukka Caribbean group as we've grown into 6 countries there. The big lesson to me was, the US market. A lot of our transactions have taken place in the Caribbean and Latin America. So when dealing with the US, in my humble opinion, that I mean, I knew theoretically, but it's very first world. They're very um, literal on, when you're supposed to close, you're supposed to close. So we had some delays in our transaction, and and just like they are in almost all transactions, but certainly the professionalism and the you really have to be on your A game, professional. Make sure if there's agreed timelines, make sure you hit those timelines. Which luckily we, within our contracts we did hit, but it came down to pretty much very close to the wire. And but really happy for our team that we put together for the last 8 months. We've been working on this transaction, so it's 8 months of working, competing against four other solid companies. Some of them are other private equity companies, some of them are other battery businesses, and we, Little Jamaica figured out a way to outmaneuver and build a relationship and come up with certainty of close. May have been a little late, but still within the contractual time that we agreed. But it was incredible, and I'm so appreciative and grateful for our team that worked on this project, from our board to our several persons on the leadership team. It's just been incredible that we are able to, 8 months ago, some people said this was crazy because the size of the company and the size of the market, and we did it, and now we have a really great asset that, as of, I'm telling you already, I'm in there. I've been in California 3-4 times. We are producing, good revenue and good profit, even since takeover. So, and I think the other thing I learned, hiring proper companies to do the due diligence, like the quality of earnings report, is one of the things that we had not done before. And I had KPMG San Francisco to do the quality of earnings report to make sure the earnings are the earnings. And I think that was very helpful along the way. So making sure you have the right advisors, quality of earnings is key, and just being timely. One of the reasons we won out of the other four companies are, anytime they said questions or anything, boom, we responded, we answered, we were on point. And I think that's allowed us, along with the relationship that I built with one of the main owners, who is joining the board of Tropical Battery and will be a shareholder. So that way there's great continuity in that. He can help guide the process, and he also thinks obviously the future is great, or he would not be taking shares in Tropical Battery as part of the transaction.
It sounds good. Hopefully we get to meet him at the AGM. So let's see how that goes. So Jerome is asking, as someone interested in PE investments, he's curious as to how you found this opportunity. But Jerome, Alexander would have answered that already. Just go back to the start of the video, or the start of our interview rather, and he would have, explained how it came about. Philip is asking, is this a 100% acquisition? It sounds like it is.
Yes, that is correct. Yeah, there's some shares involved with some of the key employees and former owner that they would get in Tropical Battery as part of the transaction, which I think just brings great alignment and also shows their buy-in to being there. But it is a 100% acquisition.
Okay.
By Tropical Battery USA LLC, which is 100% subsidiary of Tropical Battery, traded Tropical Battery here in Jamaica. So no outside partners.
I must say, when I first saw that announcement for the US LLC created, I was like, there must be something coming. I figure you would not just create a company for no reason. So I guess now the pieces have come together. So, congratulations again. Final question here is, having a US company, this is from Jerome, will give you access to much cheaper debt. Could that be done instead of an APO? If not, will the APO raise more than the junior market limit and therefore mean a graduation to the main market? Great question, I think.
Yeah, absolutely great question. And that's something we've been wrestling with our board and financial advisors. At this point, yes, US market, we are exploring lower debt, and if we can juggle that, we will. However, they don't like to hold assets outside the country, and there would be some guarantee by the parent company or whatever for that if we were able to do it. So the most likely route looks like an APO, and it looks like we would have to migrate to the main market. The good news is U.S. and Jamaica have a double taxation treaty where they don't. If I have to pay some California tax anyway, so I can offset that against any tax that becomes applicable on the main market. As you know, the main markets are pros and cons. It's more traded, it's more secure, more pension funds start to buy your company, which are long-term investors, which recently some, uh, you know, we've had some good long-term investors start to be more active in our stock. And so we think, yes, today I don't have I do have a crystal ball because somebody gave me one, but I don't have one that actually really tells me the future. And but it's clear that we are exploring both avenues. Ideally, if we could do a long-term low interest rate facility, it would boost the return of all shareholders. And of course, as a shareholder, that's one of our focus areas. But don't have anything guaranteed in hand that allows us to do that. So we are exploring Plan A and Plan B, which is a possible APO in April or May this year as well, or a little later on this year. I don't hold me on the dates, but a little later on this year we do an APO. But we have fully funded and acquired the company. I don't have any issues with figuring out. We have time. We have time to figure out which of the two makes most sense for all shareholders.
Okay, so it's more about working that out, taking your time to find the best resolution, right? So, and I guess managing the finance costs that you'd have having to complete the transaction. So, what does the new I was going to ask you what the outlook for Tropical is, but I think I want to ask you, a year from now, how should we look at Tropical, or what will we start to see? Will anything change in terms of your reporting? Will anything change in terms of what you're communicating to shareholders? Tell us a little bit about that.
No, we want to be always transparent as possible. What we will be reporting is, I'm pretty sure, much higher revenues and much higher profitability. And I think that I mean, maybe I'd get killed for saying that, sorry, but I know based on the numbers last year, if we do similar to last year with the new subsidiary Rose, and Dominican Republic is also now coming into its own, which, as I said, we just bought that in the middle of 2023, and so we put into some working capital, and the pipeline is looking really good for renewable energy projects in DR. So I think you're going to see a much larger company that's more diversified across three or two new markets that are much larger than the Jamaican market. Dominican Republic, 10, 12 million people, GDP is 100 billion GDP, compared to Jamaica's less than 20 billion GDP. So I think you're going to see a much, robust kind of settling, absorbing, harmonizing the three companies, making sure that we get the management team and everybody integrated, sharing platforms so that we can reduce cost and then more money can flow to the bottom line. And there's probably some more big picture growth stuff in the future, where in my 5-10 year vision, or maybe sooner, that we would the company being a 6-year-old Silicon Valley company, maybe we do, in the long term, my big, hairy, audacious goal would be to list on NASDAQ, take Rose and do like a reverse purchase and list on NASDAQ. And then, of course, Tropical Battery would be the major shareholder in that company if you did a reverse merger of the two companies. So that could be pretty exciting. That is a long-term big goal. Again, but if you don't put it out there, it's not likely to happen. Without a target, you're going to miss it every time, right?
Yeah. And I like that. I think I remember thinking that it's okay to share those big goals. It's okay to say this is where we're headed. And I think you've proven as a company that you are diligent in terms of how you go about executing these transactions, you have a track record, so I don't think you have anything to worry about there. And of course, if anything comes up, you'll always, communicate that the plan has changed and state why. So, it's all good there. Jerome is saying, as a shareholder, he's requesting you take the debt route. But Jerome, I'm sure Alexander will say it's
Try my
still
best. I promise.
yeah, it's still too early to say. But thank you so much, Alexander. I think it was a great conversation. We learned so much about the company, a lot to look forward to. Is there anything that maybe I did not ask you that you wanted to say before we close the segment?
No, I think again, just grateful for this platform, grateful for our team, and to share with you a quick story that one of the considerations uh, that the selling company had was when they looked up who is this Jamaican company. They watched a video of me on your program maybe 2 years ago and saying, "Oh, we're going into expansion mode and we're growing." And then he sees that we acquired something, a company in Dominican Republic, and now we're about to bid on this. But it was like a 1 hour interview, and he watched that over and over and realized, okay, well, this person seems fairly genuine, fairly authentic, and they're actually doing what they said they were going to do 2 years ago. And so I can just share with you, I have to thank you for being a part of the reason that we were chosen out of the 4 companies to acquire it, which I feel lucky and blessed about and grateful for. So thank you.
Wow, that means a lot. That means a
Uh,
lot. Thank you so much. Thank you so
it's
much.
not me. That's exactly what he told me. I swear to God. So
Wow,
thank
wow.
you.
You've made my night, definitely. All right, thank you so much, Alexander. We definitely will speak again. It sounds like we'll have a few more conversations throughout the year. Thank you for being a guest on Market Money, our new series, and we'll see you soon.
Great. Have a good evening. Thank you again.